Welcome to Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. I am your host for today, Laura Lalaki, international real estate agent. And today we're getting real about Black love and the double burden of divorce, the emotional, the physical, and the financial strains. Now, we all know Black women experience divorce at a higher rate than any other group, and the impact can be devastating. But we're not here just to dwell on the problems. Today, we're joined by a powerful panel of queens to help navigate this journey together. Today, I'm actually joined by Athena Gardner, CPA and women's wealth coach, Dr. Charm, naturopathic, I can never say that word, naturopathic doctor, spiritual coach, stand-up comedian and actress, Dr. Alicia Watkins, couples coach and therapist, and Minister Connie Spearman, entrepreneur, author, and real estate investor. But first, guys, before we move on, I want to ask you to make sure that you support Fly Nubian Money with these 3 or 4 simple tasks. 1, we ask you to like. 2, we ask you to subscribe. 3, we ask you to share. And 4, join the conversation, because we really do want to hear your thoughts and your experiences. So ladies, I'm going to dive right into this because this is a pretty common topic. Divorce rates are high in our communities, but I wanted to talk about the stats. A new report shows that Black couples have the highest divorce rates in America this year at 30.8%. Second comes in Latinos at 18.5% and Caucasians at 15.1%. So over 70% of the divorces were initiated and filed by women. I find that very interesting. So I'm going to kick off first and ask you, what has any one of you on the panel been divorced? We'll start with Minister Connie. Have you ever been divorced?
Yes, I have. I lost a son, and my husband and I, we just didn't get along. He accused me of what did I do to God for him to take our son. So that was very, very hurtful, and we just couldn't get along once he said that. Oh. You depend on your mate to help you during that crisis, but he went the opposite way. I went to therapy with my son that was 8 years old, and the therapist told me that he would probably not come and that a divorce rate was high between a couple that loses children.
Yes.
So that's exactly what happened to me.
Yes, I do know that for a fact because it's happened in my family too. Couples that were very tight, and then after they lost a son or a daughter, they just couldn't hold it together, and it was really tough. Dr. Alicia, have you ever been divorced?
Well, yeah, I've been divorced, and I've worked with a lot of people who've also been divorced, and so it's just a complex thing that happens. But I want to comment on women filing for divorce. They're more likely to file for divorce. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's the emotional dissatisfaction that I hear from women a lot. And, women are, and I think some of this is socially constructed. Women are just more attuned to emotional climate of their marriage, and they perceive like a lack of emotional support, communication, connection, and it creates this sense of like emotional neglect that can become like unbearable. And I think because men are so socialized, because of how maleness is socialized in our society as being disconnect and not necessarily connecting to their emotions. Mm-hmm. So I think that because of that, men tend to take a more practical approach to marriage and relationships, where women, they really want to maintain that physical and emotional connection. And so I think that's one of the reasons. There are many other, but that's one of the main reasons why women need that connection, and they feel like they don't have that. So and they want to get through to their husbands, like, this is what's happening. I'm very frustrated in this situation. We got to change things. And so I think that's the reason why one of the reasons why women are more likely to file for divorce. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I never really thought about that when it comes to divorce, because to me, I hear divorce and I just say divorce. I don't think which one filed for divorce. So I thought that actually took me by surprise. And we are not just asking this question for our panel. If you are watching, please put in the comments if you have been divorced and what your experiences were as well. We would love to hear back from you. Athena, what is your experience with divorce?
Well, I've never been married, so I've never gotten divorced. I've only been engaged. But what I will say is when I was looking at that stat also goes up to 90% if the woman is college educated. So the more educated the woman, it seems, the higher the divorce rate goes to. Now, I am a part of different women groups, and some of my mentors have been married for 20 plus years, and some women have been divorced. And what I've gathered from those situations is that they felt like going into the marriage that things were going to go some way, or communication was going to get better, or there was going to be some level of improvement on the issues that never happened, and thinking that they'll be able to cope with that for the long haul, and realizing that they can't. A lot of women within my group have experienced filing for divorce after some kind of substance abuse issue or financial issue. It's always some kind of event that happens that they just no longer can manage it anymore.
That's very interesting, because you're talking about a lot of outside circumstances that cause this. And a lot of people don't even really think about that. The main thing you hear is infidelity, but that's not always the case with divorce. And another point, Athena, it doesn't matter that, this applies to all relationships. It just does. Like, divorce is something that people have, if you've been married, fine, but there's common law. Sometimes you have long-term relationships. So of course, this does go across the board. Dr. Charm, I'd like to hear your thoughts on divorce. Have you had any experience at all with divorce in your life?
No, I've never been married, but I will say that, finances definitely echoing on Athena, that finances definitely plays a part in it. But infidelity is the number one cause, and then also that irreconcilable differences. So people are finding an inability to get along. And then I think what we're not looking at as far as the Black divorce rate being higher than it's Black and Hispanic than white. I mean, look at those statistics in reference to who's experiencing the most racism. And look at, how that plays a part in inability to have a family structure. So of course, Black American people are experiencing the most racism in this country, then the other groups in Hispanic, and of course, white people are not. So that would make sense that would cause strife in the household.
Very interesting. Now, we know that divorce is not just a physical thing. It can be emotional. It could take its toll on you in very many different ways. And I'd like to dive into that with each of you and hear your thoughts on that. If you're just joining us, you are watching Fly Nubian Money. We're here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you don't want to miss a single episode, because we are talking about things that could apply to your life or someone that you know and love in your life, and you may get a different perspective on that. So if you would love to hear about all these topics and you don't want to miss an episode, you want to text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948. 87948. And we would love to hear your comments, and we would love to hear your experiences. I want to now turn our conversation to the effects of divorce. We know that our divorce is high, but let's talk about the things that can take its toll on you. Now, I find it very interesting that just recently, the actress and singer, she is triple threat, Tisha Campbell came out and discussed her divorce from her ex-husband. And she said that she has not been sick at all from the divorce. She was battling sarcoidosis.
Sarcoidosis.
Thank you. Oh, I love my queens. Thanks for stepping in on that. And that's an inflammatory disease, which causes growth in the lungs, eyes, lymph nodes, and can lead to eventual organ damage since 2001. Now, I looked up that, and it also said they didn't really know, they didn't have an exact reason for this. So it's very interesting that, she's talking about it in her life. So she's the former Martin and My Wife's and Kids stars. And she said, one day I just could not breathe. It felt like an elephant was on my chest. And then she said, right after she got divorced, she's not been sick since then. I would really love to hear your comments on that and on how this can manifest in your body. She also said, I believe, I'm sorry to have to tell the truth, that I've been in remission for 4 years now, because they got divorced in 2020. They can't find it at the base of my brain at all. I haven't gotten sick, not one time. So stress, we know that stress can come in all levels of life, especially love. And so Dr. Alicia, I would love to hear your thoughts on how, in your expertise, and maybe you've seen it in your practice, how this can manifest physically.
Yeah, we can get into the mind-body connection. I think particularly when you're in an unhealthy relationship and the stress that negatively stemming from relationships that are unhealthy for you can manifest itself physically. And I think our bodies respond to emotional stress by releasing stress hormones such as cortisol, which can chronically elevate in the body, and it could lead to all these health issues, high blood pressure, immune system is weakened, even digestive issues. And if you have a disease like that's immune-based disease, it can definitely flare up if you're not equipped with how to manage it. So emotionally, the toll can be, severe. Constant exposure to situations that are harmful for you psychologically can lead to anxiety, depression, the sense of helplessness. And I think that these mental health challenges can exacerbate physical symptoms, and it's a vicious cycle that impacts your overall well-being. Yeah.
Dr. Charm, you deal with natural medicine. So when you see these things manifesting, because I'm sure that you've come across it in your practice, what are some things that people can do outside of medication? Although I'm not against medication, but I will always go the natural way if I can. What is something that people can do to help to reduce this stress?
Well, I mean, definitely there are mind-body things, acupuncture and yoga, herbs. But with sarcoidosis, I want to talk about that just to, since we started talking about that disease state. It's an autoimmune disease. So it's in a category with lupus. And basically your immune system is turning on your own body. It's turning on itself. It's attacking itself. Bernie Mac died from complications of sarcoidosis. It usually does attack the lungs. It looks like Tisha Campbell had it in a different area. But stress is a huge exacerbator of autoimmune disease, and it can make somebody have flare-ups specifically for sarcoidosis. So she was in this marriage with Dwayne Martin. I mean, they had a bankruptcy where they owed $15 million in debts that were having to be, sorted through. So if you're dealing with that, and there's some other inferences about his sexuality. So all these things, those that can cause her to have flare-ups and have issues. So if you remove a big stressor such as that marriage, if it was really causing her a lot of stress, then it would make sense that she went into remission. And then that really is an example of how powerful the mind is in how we have diseases.
I think that is a huge factor, the power of the mind. I don't think people understand that. To me, I always like to say, I heard this a long time ago from somewhere, that words are magic. Abracadabra actually means something. So the things that we say can manifest into our bodies very easily if we continue to say them over and over. So I think there is a lot of power behind that. Minister Connie, I know with you being in the ministry that you deal with a lot of divorce situations. How is it in your practice when you're speaking to them? Do you see a lot of people coming to you for premarital and afterwards when they're trying to get help. What has been your experience with this stressful time in people's lives?
I could tell you from my own experience when I went through my divorce from my husband, not only that I suffered from the death of our child, divorce and separation of the things that was familiar with me, like my home. I moved in back to Pittsburgh and moved in with my mother. So it caused a lot of stress. My stress went from anxiety attack to panic attacks. So I developed a panic attack disorder, which later caused me to have a lupus, skin lupus. But now I don't have that because I was healed from it. But it does happen. It causes stress, mental distress also, so you have all these things going on. So you're trying to work on all these different areas and you're in a dark, deep place. I have a friend that went through a divorce and her husband divorced her after 30 years of marriage. That's a long time. And she could not deal with it, where she had a nervous breakdown from it because she couldn't understand why he did not want to be married. And sometimes people grow apart. They have different ideas. Their eyes get attracted to someone else. So these are all the reasons why. But mine was because of the death of a child. So I really was in a dark place at that time because I was going through so much. And it's a very difficult thing to be separated from your mate because you become one when you get married. God dislikes the divorces. So when you're separated, you're going through that too. It feels like a part of you have died. A big part of you have died. So therefore, that's why God doesn't like divorces, because he knows what we will go through when we're going through a divorce.
I totally agree with that. And I have to tell you, I actually teared up a little bit and had to take a big gulp when you said that your friend of 30 years, I've been married for 31, getting ready to be 32. I absolutely cannot imagine me not having my husband. And we've been able to work through everything. Every couple has its ups and downs. But we made it a point before we got married to really look at each other in the eye and say, we don't want divorce. So no matter what comes up, we promise that we will try to work through it immediately. And we did couples therapy before we got married. So I just can't imagine how stressful that could have been for your friend. If you're just now joining us, you are watching Fly Nubian Money, and we are talking about a very real topic today about divorce, but we are tackling this topic head on, talking about our experiences and, helping you get through it if you're experiencing it at this time. So if you love this type of content, we would love for you to like, share, and subscribe. And you also can go get some great resources at flynubianmoney.com, all for free. So if you don't know where to turn on some things, why don't you go visit our website and see if there's something that you can use. And if you don't want to miss any episode that we have, we want you to make sure that you text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948 so that you don't miss an episode. But guess what? I forgot to tell you a secret, like in the first, but it's a well-known secret. You can find us now on Spotify, and I love that. So if you're in the car, you're just riding around, maybe you're taking a jog, getting some fresh air, tune in, catch us there as well, because we would love for you to like and subscribe there. And when you do that, please make sure you leave us a 5-star review as well, because that helps us to get found. Now, I'm going to turn this back into our conversation. We have some great people in the comments. Someone says, thank you for discussing this topic. And I think it's a very important topic for not just our community, everybody's community. And then also we actually had someone say that Tisha was healed by the power of divorce. And sometimes you do just have to put the stress away. And if that is a major stressor, then maybe that's something that should be looked at, but not taken lightly. And Marital Tech, thank you for subscribing to us. We appreciate you so much. Athena, You are a money lady. So I want to talk to you because money is a main source of stress, right? But now you're throwing in divorce on top of that. I would like to hear some of your thoughts on how you see this in your practice.
I'm lucky and glad to share those things. So obviously I have my own company, We Wealth Women, where I help women gain wealth. And actually in one of my workshops, I discuss this. In my New Year, New Wealth workshop, I give women financial strategies and things to consider throughout all stages in their life, whether they're single, married, divorced, or widowed, because at each single stage, there are some vulnerabilities that women need to address to financially protect themselves. One of the stats in that workshop actually is that 45% of women will experience a decline in their living standards after a divorce, compared to only with men, it's 21% decline. A lot of women after divorce, I think it's about 20% of women fall into poverty after divorce. So divorce is a very serious issue. Not only that, when I wasn't surprised when Tisha was saying that, she felt better or her ailments went away post divorcing her ex-husband, because the statistics shows that 80% of autoimmune diseases are within women. So women have 80% of the autoimmune diseases. And what does that mean? Because women tend to be the emotional containers for their families, their relationships, right? We are very much connected to the mental, physical, emotional. So because we are absorbing often on in our roles, taking on all this emotions, our own emotions, children, husband, whoever in your life, if those relationships are not positive, it can definitely wreak havoc in your stress levels, your cortisol levels, reduce your serotonin levels, right? And can cause a lot of depression and anxiety in women. Now, how that ties into money, when I teach from a money perspective, as I relate to women, I often have us address the other factors of money that need to be addressed, but not necessarily always talked about. I can easily teach you how to, create a stock portfolio. I can easily teach you how to, create a business and those things. But oftentimes the blocks to our financial abundance have to do with unresolved issues in our emotions and what's going on with our life, because we do not prioritize the importance of those things. So usually when a woman has a health issue, or any other issue, because I like to look at things holistically, that will definitely have a significant financial impact in a woman's life. So when Tisha was talking about how her disease miraculously went away, I'm sure the stress that she was enduring in that marriage, once that was taken away, that because I think sarcoidosis, that is an autoimmune disease. So the stress that she was experiencing within that marriage probably greatly agitated or set off a DNA or something that caused that. And when he went away or she was free from that, she was able to focus on herself, her peace, and receive healing from that. Also, according to medical news today, your partner affects a lot of what you experience physically. So the positive effects of a healthy relationship means reduced pain, you achieve healthy goals, you improve your fitness. It even alters your microbiome. So couples' skin biome uh, actually mesh well together. And in science, it was proven that 86% of couples were able to be matched just by taking their skin samples, right? But if you have a negative partner, studies also show it intensifies the pains you increase, derails your diet, induce weight gain, and causes all these health conditions. So outside of whether or not you're in a marriage or not, or in a regular relationships, even if it's romantic or platonic, we have to really take accountability and say, okay, is this a positive relationship? Because if this area is not going well, then there's going to be other areas of my life that are going to derail from that as well.
Wow, that's a lot of really good information. We have a wonderful comment that I think would flow into a wonderful question for you, Dr. Alicia. Melanated Rich Convo said, for those that think divorce is not an option, what do you think about separating for a term? So, Dr. Alicia, how does this flow into your practice? How do you approach couples who are considering divorce? Is this something that you help them to consider?
Yeah, I mean, always in my office, I see couples who are at a crossroad. They have to sit and decide, what are our issues? How long we've been dealing with these issues, what they've done to try to rectify the issue, and if it is connected to a deep core about who and what they are, and they're at a crossroad and they're realizing that they can't continue on the way that they are. The relationship, not the person, but the relationship just doesn't work for them anymore. It is a very difficult place to be. Sitting on the fence, it hurts your butt, right? To sit on the fence. And so it's to I help couples provide some clarity into what is it that you actually want from your partner, and what are some actionable steps that your partner can take so that they can make that commitment to make the change. And it's a back and forth thing to have those really critical conversations with couples. And sometimes one or both decide they've just had enough and they want to give up. And then we can have conversations about what that looks like. Remember, marriage is a state of mind. It's not really a piece of paper. There are many marriages where people are married on paper, but in their mind, they're not married. There's people who aren't married in paper, but in their mind, they are actually married. So it's a state of mind. It's the commitment to a healthy relationship that they have with each other. And it really takes two people to create a relationship that works for both of them. So it really is a very intense situation. Everybody has to become accountable for their behavior and how it has contributed to the problem. That's always an issue. And these are some critical conversations that I have with couples all the time so that they can have some clarity. And, you know, I like to default where people can be together and stay together, but I understand that sometimes it just doesn't work for them anymore and they have to move on. And what is a healthy way to separate? You know, I think that we don't have to tragically throw dirt at each other just because the relationship is dissolved. We have to come up with a healthy way to process ending a relationship so that both of you can move on. I don't think we need to attach shame to it. I don't think we need to point fingers and say what's wrong with you because a marriage or a relationship has dissolved, or even an engagement has dissolved. We should not carry a level of shame with ourselves. We should need to have a place to process all of the complex emotion of living life, living our lives, and wanting to be fulfilled in our capacity in this life. So yeah, it's a tough situation. I feel sorry. And I also want to thank Pastor Connie. Thank you so much for talking about, you know, the loss of your child and to have a loss of a marriage at around the same time. That, you know, I'm glad that you've gone through something like that, but that's very painful. So I just want to thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
It is a really painful place to be, and it does bring on a lot of stress. It really does. Like I said, I went from anxiety to panic attacks to having a disorder in my body. My immune system caused me to have skin lupus, but the Lord healed me of that, which I'm so happy. So yes, that's just what happens when you're going through so much stress for a long period of time. Just trying to work out your life and put it back together. But prayer always works. I want to say that. I prayed a lot.
Yeah.
I pray over everything. I mean, everything, because you
Yeah.
have to. You have to.
Definitely.
I want to address a comment that we have, and someone mentioned in the chat that it's always the man's fault, and I'd like to debate that a little bit. It's not always the man's fault. I don't feel that way. I mean, women can not communicate and be the cause of a disruption of a marriage very easily, which also leads into another great comment by International Ladies Chamber of Commerce. She said, how do you know that you're loved? Well, you know, everybody has a different love language. Just a simple touch sometimes, or a support system. Like when we're in a crowded room, the fact that my husband comes and touches me on my back, that's a connection, or that he listens. I think there's many different ways to know that you're loved. And that's what you can come up as a couple there. As long as you're speaking the love language together, you'll know that. Dr. Charm?
Okay, I didn't hear anything you said. It sounded like you might have been muted or.
Yeah.
Little gremlins in the system. I wanted to ask you, how can Black couples improve their communication to avoid future conflict, or at least navigate a smooth separation if that's the path they choose?
Okay, I think knowing how to argue is really important, because I think a lot of times, you know, couples will argue and then someone says something very uninvolved or a slur or something very disrespectful, and then the argument is over, but then the couple is still smarting from that person throwing that comment out. So knowing a constructive, I won't say positive, but a constructive way to argue is very important. I think getting premarital counseling is really, I think it's something that's not done enough. And I think that that's one way to head things off at the pass. Of course, counseling, but also taking personal accountability. You know, you can't say, well, my husband doesn't talk to me, so I'm divorcing him, but then you don't try to talk to your husband, or you don't express what your needs are. So people need to be able to have the space and the safety to express what their needs are in relation to other people. And that's not just marriage, that's in all relationships.
I totally agree with that. Communication is definitely key in anything that you do. You expect to do that at your job. Why not do that also in your marriage? If you're just joining us, or you're just watching or listening, you are listening and watching Fly Nubian Money, where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money. And if you want to get your money right, visit our website at www.flynubianmoney.com to get free financial resources, courses, and more. Then you want to head on over to Spotify and make sure that you subscribe to us there so that you can catch all of our shows. And then if you want a reminder, because you just don't want to miss it, you want to make sure that you text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948. So you want to do that today. And listen, we would love to hear your comments. This is not just a panel talking at you. We love to hear what you have to say. What's going on in your life? What has been your experience with divorce? I have great comments coming on and a couple of questions that I think will be great for us to address. So let's go back to some of those and let's hear what, we have to say, Terry Wilson agrees with you, Minister Connie, prayer works. Prayer definitely works. So Beverly Ward asked, should couples get marriage counseling before getting married? And I'm going to throw that to you, Minister Connie, because I want you to address that as a spiritual as well as a practical consultation.
Yes, I think that spiritual counseling before marriage is great, because what it does, it brings everything, it lays everything out on the table. So if there is something that person in dating that you don't agree with, you should talk it out with the minister. So that is exactly what we should do. If you're going through a divorce or thinking about a divorce or separation, you should also get counseling. I think it's a good thing. Back in the day, as they would say, they would separate instead of divorce. I know a lot of men that would separate from their wives and still be married with another relationship. They did not divorce because sometimes they come back together after so many years. I have heard that story over and over again. They thought it was going to be greener on the other side until they noticed that it has to be mowed. That side got to be mowed also. So therefore, they come back together and they work it out and they get along much better. Sinbad talks about that. He makes you laugh about it, how he thought that he wanted to be divorced from his wife, and he thought, oh, that woman's crazy. I might as well go back to the crazy that I know. So it was real funny the way he put it. But yes, I think that getting a separation, having a separation for a period of time to see which direction you should go and not go into divorce immediately.
I have to giggle at that because my husband and I tease each other all the time. Like if we have a simple disagreement, we always choose to try to laugh about it. Well, thank God we don't argue a lot. But when we get into a little discussion, and he'll say, I'm going to get a new wife. And I said, okay, go ahead. I'll be waiting in line when she returns you. You know, because I know you, I know your feelings. I know we're meshed. So go ahead and go see what that young little wife has got for you, because she's not going to understand your jokes. She's not going to understand your stress. She's not going to understand the 80s music and the big hair. I have been with you since we were 14 years old. So I just have to laugh at that, because you do have to take all of those things into account. But here's another good comment from one of our viewers. Angela Marie said, marriage is a job. And yes, it is a job. If you really want it, in my opinion, you got to work for it. But Dr. Alicia, how do you feel about that comment? You've been married, you're married now. So is marriage a job?
Oh, yeah, marriage definitely, I mean, it is challenging. Okay. It requires effort, a continuous effort. It requires great communication skills. It requires lots of compromise and flexibility. You're blending two lives together. And I think the pre-marriage counseling, what we talked about before, is so important to, before you get married, talk about expectations for the marriage. Where do you want to live? How many children do you want to have? Like, these conversations need to be had before you actually get married. And so many people spend so much money on a wedding that they don't even spend that much money on making sure that their marriage works right. So yes, it is, these challenging things, I think, should be sorted out before you actually walk down the aisle with somebody, because, you know, we live in this, let's face it, we live in this modern world. The pace, the pressure, you have to balance your career, you have family obligations. I have my own personal needs, you have your personal needs. And I think it can be very much overwhelming. But at the same time, the realities of divorce is tough, right? It's just not the end of a relationship. You have to say goodbye to yourself as a married person, and you can never go back to your single life again. You're now a divorcee. So who are you now? You know, you have to restructure your life. That can be overwhelming. And I just think this process, sometimes it brings to light some unresolved issues that a lot of people need to take on. There's emotional wounds that are there when you end a relationship, and it can be incredibly stressful. So I love that we're talking about this. And thank you so much, Lala, for talking about laughter. I think so much in our marriages, we take things so seriously sometimes. It's so fun to laugh with your partner about things. I mean, you sharing that story is just an indication of a healthy relationship. That's one indication of a healthy relationship. So I'm loving this conversation today.
So am I. And I think that goes back to the question of, how do you know when you're loved? Well, when you can laugh together and turn something that was stressful before, and then you get the giggles. I can't tell you, after that, then anytime we look at each other, we just giggle after that, because it sounds so ridiculous. But the freedom to be able to express that to one another is very, very important. I want to address this comment. International Ladies Chamber of Commerce said, I have found little value in counseling. Most therapists are only human too. And my initial answer to that is, sometimes you have to go through more than one therapist to find the right one for you. So Dr. Charm, I would love to hear your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I was with a therapist for a good year, and I didn't feel like she was meeting my needs, and I was really having to weigh firing that therapist. But fortunately, she moved away, and then I ended up getting another therapist who was, much better. But I think, before people say, oh, it doesn't work, you do have to try different ones. And then also it may be different methods of therapy. Like if I were a person with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, I wouldn't use cognitive behavioral therapy, which is really known as talk therapy. I would be looking at more of EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization. So you have to look at what issues you're dealing with and what method of therapy, and if is your therapist trained in that method of therapy before you throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Totally agree with that. You got to look at the whole picture. If you are just joining us, you are watching Fly Nubian Money. We are here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you don't want to miss one single episode. So be sure that you text the word Queens, Queens, to 87948 so that you don't miss an episode. Then you want to head on over to our awesome website at flynubianmoney.com, where you can get free financial resources, courses, and more. And then you want to make sure you tune in on Spotify. We are everywhere, humming in your ears and helping you with solutions and getting things going. You know you love us because we love you too. I'm loving all the comments. This is what else we love to see from you is comments. And we love to address your experiences as well. Let's change it up a little bit to the financial aspect, because we do know that financial also turns into stress a lot of the times, and that also can lead to divorce. And I'm kind of going to kick it off a little bit with what I have seen in my practice of real estate. I do come across divorce situations, and being an agent can be very stressful sometimes, dealing with a husband and wife who are no longer communicating. And so this can have a direct effect on their finances, their emotions, and sometimes I see it a lot in the children. So I see that every day. And one thing that we should always consider is to never talk down about someone around their children. We should keep them protected at all costs. Athena, I'm going to throw it over to you because you are our expert CPA. What do you see in your practice when it comes to the finances of divorce?
Well, when it comes to divorce, it can wreak financial havoc because there's so much, especially if you're a marriage, that are combined. So now between the lawyers, and they figure that out, how to separate joint things. But I think the stress part of the financial situation is when you are married, two things happen. First, you generally get to reduce expenses because now you're sharing expenses. You're sharing the home, you're sharing the light, you're sharing the food, you're sharing. But also, especially if if your spouse works, that's more of an increase in income. So the two effects of the increased income and the reduced expenses make it so that you have more money, more wealth, and thus increased quality of life. Now, when you are getting divorced now you have to go back to being a single person relying on your income or whatever alimony or child support that you get. Child support is a whole other issue, and that is state. But the average child support payment is less than $500. Look that up. While people are complaining about child support, the average payment is less than $500. Now, you look at inflation, gas prices, and all the other stuff. What is that $500 going to do? Not much. The other thing, too, you have to consider is that maybe when you got together, it was just you and that person. Children. The expenses of raising children now and what their needs are, camp, summer school, activities, things of that nature. So to try to, most of the time when a divorce happens, it decreases the quality of life of the entire family because now you have to support two households instead of one.
And the emotional finances in the head as well.
Yeah,
for
women
the whole.
especially, like the statistic is 20% of women fall into poverty after divorce, 45% of women experience a decline in lifestyle compared to 21% of men. A lot of that is attributed to because a woman often takes career breaks during the course of relationship and marriage, either to raise children or to deal with elderly parents or whatever the case may be, or to push often a husband's career. So even if that woman was to now focus on herself and try to build her career back up, oftentimes it probably would not be at the level if she had been single the whole time because of the compromises she had to make for her family and that household.
Wow. That's really interesting, especially when there's always usually majority of the time children involved. I want to look at some stats that we have about the toxic impact of divorce, the negative impact of a bad marriage or a relationship, because this can also be if you don't have that ring on your finger. We've got stress. The consistent stress and anxiety of a bad marriage can increase blood pressure levels, which can lead to chronic hypertension over time. And this can also increase the risk of cardiovascular problems such as heart attacks and strokes, which we know we discuss things in our community. We already have issues in that area of our health life. So this could increase those. It also, as Dr. Connie, Minister Connie said, immune system. Chronic stress can weaken the immune system, making people more susceptible to illness and infections. Sleep, which guys can lead to so much other things. Tensions from arguments and upset can make it difficult to relax and get enough sleep, which can negatively affect health. Because, you know, if you're not sleeping, guys, nothing makes sense. You're just a walking zombie. Weight. People may eat more when they are stressed out or upset, and chronic stress can also affect the body's metabolism of high-fat foods, which can lead to weight gain and digestion. Prolonged stress can also cause digestive issues such as constipation. So now we're talking about, we did discuss the physical early, but here's some things that they can directly go into, and we've all mentioned these things. But here's another thought. Do you think that some of this can also be lessened, this stress lessened, if you, before you get married, you discuss and have the therapy? But what about prenups? You don't have to be rich to have a prenup. I think that's a misconception. Minister Connie, you have a lot of assets.
Yes, I do.
And so how would a new relationship or, you know, a new marriage or something, is that something that you consider to protect your assets before a union?
It's so funny that you asked that. My significant other is deceased. We were in a car accident together. I am now engaged, and that is something we're considering I'm considering asking him for a prenup because I do have a lot of assets. So that's a hard place right now to be in when you're dating and you're thinking about marriage. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it, especially if you have a lot of assets that you have built before you got married to another person. Now, after we're married, anything that we have from that point on, we will share it. But at my age, I think that I have to look out for generational wealth. I have grandchildren. So I want to leave my wealth to my grandchildren that I have built up as this far.
Yeah, and I do talk about generational wealth a lot. I mean, we do have to take that into consideration. Our communities don't realize how important it is to be able to pass down the wealth to your children and your grandchildren. It is something that you can think about, because a lot of times just because you got divorced doesn't mean you're not going to go into another relationship and maybe also have more children or blended family. I think people need to take into account these additional things that come into the facts of divorce. And if you're watching right now, you're watching Fly Nubian Money. We are here Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you don't want to miss any of our episodes. You can catch us on Spotify. Go check us out there. Make sure you subscribe. And how about you leave us a little bit of a comment there as well and give us a 5-star rating? We'd love to hear that. Share this out. Subscribe. Comment. We want to hear what you've got to say. But if you also need some help with your finances and you don't know where to turn, you can always find us on our website at flynubianmoney.com, where you'll also get free financial resources and courses. And you can also be reminded of all this and get some really great stuff by easily picking up your personal assistant called That Phone and texting Queens to QUEENS to 87948. So today I'm actually joined by an awesome panel of queens, and I am loving this conversation. And it sounds like the people who are in our watching as also enjoying. I'm joined by Minister Connie. Dr. Alicia, Dr. Charm, and Athena, and we are discussing divorce and the ramifications of divorce, not just financially, but physically and mentally. Dr. Alicia, I would really love to hear your thoughts on some techniques that you can use in the beginning, maybe before you decide to go to therapy, that a couple can sit down and discuss before they decide to move on to professional therapy?
I mean, sometimes, like I said, sometimes couples are at a crossroad and they feel like they need to have a neutral third person who are skilled. I mean, a licensed therapist is someone to use evidence-based practice, right? So they're looking for a specific person who has training in helping couples figure out what's going on in their relationship, how to communicate, point out what's healthy and what's not healthy. So that's one way in which couples come. Couples also come, the smart couples, real smart couples, they come into my office, not that there are like issues happening, but they come because I say, you know what, I want to make sure that I'm entering into this committed relationship and both of us are showing up in the way that's helpful for the relationship. So those are the smart couples that wants to say, before issues develop, I want to be able to be in a healthy relationship. I want to make sure that I am communicating and giving my all to this relationship because, as Athena and all of us talked about, there's money tied to this, resources. Money is one resource, but there's a lot of resources tied to a committed relationship, and they want to make sure they're getting the most out of it because they're committed to having a healthy relationship. So I love that. I love when I see couples do that because they have something wonderful in place so that when they continue with their relationship, they won't have all these problems that they're dealing with. And I will say that, I really hate when I see couples that have been dealing with their issues for 15, 20 years, and it's all this built up resentment. And sometimes by the time they get to me, it's just after all these years of resentment, it takes so much time and effort to dig into and to air out all of these things. And there's so many hurt feelings. There's so many missed opportunities. Why didn't you have this conversation years ago when it came up for you? So I see couples at every stage. I don't think it's too late. No matter where you are in your relationship, it's never too late to make the commitment to each other, to make things better, to forgive each other, to apologize. And asking for forgiveness, saying you're sorry is just one little tiny aspect of it. It's listening. It's figuring out what was it that you did to hurt that other person, and just having those great conversations. You can have a stronger relationship than you've ever had. And no matter what the history is, I've seen a lot of couples come around and live with each other in a way that's healthy, and healthy couples live a long time. So why not have a nice, happy, healthy relationship? It's within your grasp. You can do it. But it takes both of you committed to make whatever necessary adjustments you need to make so that can happen.
Key words, you gotta want it. You both gotta want it, and that is the make or break right there. You can't have one person.
Yeah, it's like therapy. Okay, yeah, therapy in and of itself doesn't work. It's what you do outside of those sessions. It's making the conscious commitment to listen to what your therapist is saying and saying, you know what, I'm going to do something different based on my new knowledge of data and information that I know about healthy ways to communicate. I'm not going to lash out and call my partner names anymore. I'm going to stop, take a breather, come back and repair. And, it's making that effort to be committed to make changes that makes the relationship better and makes your partner feel loved. Yeah.
Back to the love languages, right? How do you know that you're loved, right? I want to address this comment. International Ladies Chamber of Commerce said divorce is so sad and lasting. I thought I would find a second husband with no problem, but there is no one. I hardly got dates with prospective suitors. I was not as desirable as I was when I was married. I want to ask you, Dr. Charm, because this seems like a really good question. What are some steps that Black women can take to rebuild their lives and redefine their sense of self after divorce?
Yeah, I mean that comment is it's sad to hear, and I think that this would be a very good case for someone to seek individual therapy. Because I don't know how long International Ladies Chamber of Commerce was married. And so, there might have been a short marriage, long marriage, but I think the counseling can help you strategize and just debrief from having undergone that relationship. And then I'm always one about, women have fitness goals, anything, you look better, you feel better. And so if you have any fitness goals that you're trying to accomplish, makeovers, these kind of things, taking a vacation, anything to do with self-care, massages, like all those things really help to make you feel better about yourself, because when you feel better about yourself, you're more confident and you're more attractive to the opposite sex.
Agree. Sometimes we have to look at ourselves, right? I've said it before once, wherever you go, there you are. Sometimes you got to take a hard look at yourself. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I think that we've given people a really good insight on how divorce can affect not only their minds, bodies, and spirits. And it was great to have everyone comment and give their perspective on everything. So I want to kind of wind down a little bit on this subject, but I want to hear each of yours final thoughts, and I would love to hear how people can reach you and where they can find you. Let's start with Minister Connie.
Yes. I want to say this about the prenup agreement. If you're at my age, and I'm not in no 30 or 40-year-old, but at my age, I think that when you have a lot of assets that you should make sure that they're protected if you're going to get married again. I have heard of so many bad stories about people that got married again and they had a lot of assets that didn't work out and they got divorced. So even though I don't believe in divorce, but if it happens, you should have some kind of prenup. But you should also validate your own self. God validated us, so you should validate yourself. If you're having a hard time finding a mate, which he should find you, that he should find you. You don't go looking. So I want to say that. But just take the time for yourself. Do something new. Create another plan of life to make sure that you're happy first. So that's what I would like to say in that.
And where can we find you?
Oh, ConnieSpearman.com.
Awesome. Dr. Alicia, can we hear your final words and where we can find you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big lesson today, particularly with Tisha Campbell talking about how the stress had an impact on her body and her health. And I just think that one thing I want to have everyone keep in mind is that if you are in a meditative practice and you are in a relaxed body, you cannot have stress and a relaxed body at the same time. Mm-hmm. When you're in a relaxed body, you're not reaction. You don't react to things, you act. So reactionary behaviors is one thing that keeps you in this state of cortisol release in your body. But as long as you have some sort of practice, it could be prayer. You could talk to Pastor Connie can talk about that. It could be prayer. It could be meditation. It could be, whatever it takes to get you into a relaxed body. That helps you decrease the stress no matter what's going on in your life. Because sometimes it's difficult to just walk away from somebody or walk away from a situation because it just doesn't serve you anymore. You have to have these coping mechanisms. So I encourage everybody to come up with some sort of practice so that they can get into a comfortable body. And it increases your thinking capacity, and you can live with intentionality and you can live with integrity. You can find me at coachingwithdralicia.com. I can take individual and couples. You can fill out the intake form on my website. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Coaching with Dr. Alicia. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Alicia.
Okay.
Dr. Charm, we would love to hear your final thoughts and where can we find you?
Okay, my final thoughts is, what did that commenter say? Tisha Campbell was healed by the power of divorce. But really, it's any major stressor that's in your life, whether it be a job. I mean, these jobs are killing people. So the jobs, the family members, the financial burden of taking care of family and parents and things. So whatever it is that's causing the stress, remove that stress and put yourself first, because at the end of the day, you're only given this one flesh body to be in, and you got to take care of yourself. You can find me at Instagram at charmgirl77. And for anybody that wants to get spiritual reading, spiritual coaching, tarot readings, and things of that sort, you can text me at 404-832-5179.
Thank you so much for that. Athena, let's hear your final comments and where we can find you.
My final comments are this: whether you are single, married, divorced, or widowed, as a woman, you need to have a financial strategy for each stage of your life and understand the vulnerabilities that will affect you in each of those stages. I am Athena. I'm a CPA and I am a women's wealth coach. And you can find me at wewealthwomen.com. I actually have a workshop and a course that deals with a lot of what we discussed today. So if you're interested in that, you can find me at wewealthwomen.com, at wewealthwomen on all social platforms, and listen to me on the We Wealth Women podcast.
Fabulous. Please make sure that you all go and follow these wonderful queens and see what they have to help you in your life. I am Laura Lala Key. Everybody calls me Lala, international real estate agent. And my comment to you is, marriage is worth it if you both want it. It's a beautiful journey. It can be stressful at times. Is it work? But oh, it's worth it, because I, in my head, see me and my husband, if God so should see it, at 95 on our rocking chairs on our front porch. It is worth it. Take the time to put the energy into it. You can find me at bit.ly/Laura Key info. Queens, I want to thank you for your insightful perspectives about divorce and the impact in our community. And for our listeners, if you're navigating challenges, seek support and resources to help you on your journey. We have a lot of great resources for you on our website at www.flynubianmoney.com. So you want to head on over there and download those resources. And if you don't want to miss an episode, you definitely want to make sure that you text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948. And we are here Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you don't want to miss an episode. Then head on over to Spotify and take us on the road with you, because you don't want to miss any episodes at all. We want to thank you. We want to thank you for being here. We want to thank you for your comments and your communication. And we hope that you will also share with others about this great show. And until next time, be the light. We can't wait to see you next time. Have a good one. Bye, Queens.